it's a weird universe that isn't a universe kind of a thing.
Lounging, son.
Welcome to the Comic Lounge. I got another awesome interview for you guys today. I'm talking to cartoonist Jamie Jones, who I've interviewed before for the site, but now we're getting to meet in person. How's it going, Jamie?
It's going well. It's an early morning. I got my cup of coffee. We're good to go.
You could probably tell that I haven't been awake too long myself. Look at my big ass cup of coffee, just in case some people may not, watching may not be aware of your work, can you just give us a brief rundown of who you are and what you've done?
Yeah, my first comic that I did was this book called Dodger. It was just a small self-published thing that I did, but we did 5 issues of it, which was super fun. And then I did a book. I did 5 Ghosts. My first official published work was in the 5 Ghost Annual. It was like the last issue of 5 Ghost that came out. I'm friends with Frank Barberi, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to do this?" And so I did, and things came from that, and I was able to do more stuff. But what I've been doing for the past 2 years now is the Baboon comic book. That's all on me. And then I also did Quarter Killer for Comixology Originals with Vita Ayala and Danny Lore. And that ended earlier this year. So that was a 5-issue run for there, and then it was back to the Baboon. So
cool. Right before we talk about the new project, I'm curious, how does that differ doing a Comixology exclusive comic as opposed to, was that your first one too?
Yeah.
First digital only?
It's digital only. Yeah. For my process doesn't change that much. I did everything traditionally. I colored it digitally. What you do get the RGB coloring when you work digitally only, so you don't have to worry about it being desaturated or colors not being exactly what you want. You have like the full array of colors. Primarily, the biggest difference and thinking of when you have to work for Comixology is they have that guided view reading, and when they're footing the bill, you have to work within that confines. So it's a lot of really small panels, like a lot of it's 8-panel pages, 9-panel pages, because it works really well in that kind of one panel image at a time. Yeah, you can't have guys like bleed over into other panels and stuff. That's like a hard no for them. It's tricky.
Yeah, it's weird. I've tried to read digitally, and I don't know. Maybe I'm stuck in my old ways, but I just can't. I need the comic in my hand. There's just something about it, about the experience. So, I was just curious how that would be for you. But yeah, let's talk about your project. Can you tell us a little bit about? I mean, I know what it's about, but can you tell the viewers what the project's about?
The current Kickstarter that I'm running,
correct Baboon meets Pink Lemonade, the
Baboon
Jamboree.
Pink Lemonade Jamboree. It's a crossover comic indie event of the year is what we're calling it. The Indie Comics crossover event of the year. I'd been a fan of Nick's for a while. Nick is the creator of Pink Lemonade. I'd been a fan of Nick's for a while, and I had bought books from him before Pink Lemonade had come out, and we had a little bit of we had followed each other on Instagram, and in a normal like, hey, I like your stuff. Hey, I like your stuff too. Cut to last year at Heroes Con, we met in person, and it was also the launch of Pink Lemonade and the launch of the Baboon. And we started talking, and we were just like, oh, hey, we like each other's stuff. Later last year, I started reading a bunch of Image comics, and a lot of Savage Dragon. And Savage Dragon pops into, like, characters just come into Savage Dragon's world, and I was like, I want that. I want to do that. That's the most fun thing you can do. So I hit up Nick, and Nick was 100% down for it. And we co-wrote this issue. I penciled and inked it, and he colored it. So it's a really like mix and meld of styles.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah. Like you say that that it was the '90s stuff. What about that energy that those books were giving? Because I mean, I too have been reading some of those early '90s lately. So what about that energy just really stood out to where you're like, man, I want some of this in a new project?
It's and especially with the image stuff, it's really really prevalent. But also a lot of the Dark Horse, the early Dark Horse stuff with Hellboy and the Goon and all of that stuff. There's the idea that cartoonists, like the community of cartoonists, is I think what the energy that I really picked up on was cartoonists helping each other out and just like, hey, the turtles are going to come over here and we're all trying to sell more comics. We're all trying to make this thing work better for us.
Hmm.
It just the energy is almost on like this meta level where, okay, Spawn's in this issue, great. I'm going to read a couple issues of Spawn. Maybe then I'll jump over. I remember superhero crossovers always uh, intrigued me when I was reading the Peter David X Factor run in the late 2000s.
Hmm.
Uh, he was also writing She-Hulk, and there was an X Factor She-Hulk crossover. I was not reading She-Hulk at the time, and then the crossover happened, and then me and my brother started picking up She-Hulk as well. Um, so it was just like that's the kind of thing and the kind of energy that uh, you get from a crossover is you get that cross pollination.
Hmm.
But in the '90s stuff, and especially the image stuff, that's like when it's all creator owned stuff, you have this weird creator owned universe that's kind of a real thing, but also not. Like Spawn still exists in Spawn's world, and Savage
Hmm.
Dragon still exists in Savage Dragon's world. It's this weird. It's a weird universe that isn't a universe kind of a thing.
And how quickly did this project come together with you guys? This was your idea, and you reached out to Nick.
Yeah, yeah. It was very fast. Once we started working on it, it was we just set up a Google Docs, pitched a few ideas to each other, and then settled on one and started writing, started going. I write and draw and thumbnail at the same time,
Hmm.
so that takes up it. It cuts out a step, right? I'm not just
Right.
typing up dialogue and then going and drawing. I'm able to actually send Nick some page layouts for him to look at and write around and I would send him maybe like 4 pages at a time. So it was nothing super crazy. It was like, hey,
Hmm.
what do you think the next beat is after this? Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, man. Have you guys thought about have you talked about reversing the roles
Yeah.
and
Yes.
doing another one?
Yes. There is in the book, uh, there is Pink Lemonade says that she knows who the baboon is because Ron Radical, her friend, who is also a secret agent, told her about the baboon because the baboon and Ron Radical had teamed up years ago for this, like in France, for this crazy adventure. And that's the next book. If we do another one of these, Nick is going to going to draw a Ron Radical baboon book, um, which would be super, super, super fun, super ridiculous.
Yeah, that sounds cool, dude. As I'm talking to you, I can't help but look at the books on your shelf. Uh,
Oh yeah,
what are of the Image '90s books? Because let's keep it into the conversation. But what are some of your favorites from that era?
Savage Dragon is hands down my favorite of that era.
Hmm.
It kind of doesn't. For me, it doesn't get better than that. It's like that's the pinnacle.
Hmm.
Pit. I have a issue of Pit that I look at all the time. It's just the second issue, but it's
Oh, I just
just
read that recently.
it's just here,
So,
and it's just like what a weird comic.
yeah.
I like a lot of the second wave stuff.
Like,
Uh,
so like
the
Max and stuff like
the
that.
Max, yeah, yeah, where it gets a little, it gets less away from the superhero-y stuff that, hey, we're just going to do Marvel comics our way. Uh,
Hmm.
and it becomes a little more, everything kind of levels out to being like in a Savage Dragon world. I don't know. I love Savage Dragon. I think it's
Hey, dude, so do I.
a
You
great comic.
preaching, preaching to the choir, man. I actually just, was lucky enough to get to chat with Eric the other day, so that was pretty fun. Like I had done an email interview, but it's different. Like same with you. Like it's different when you get to talk to the person
Yeah,
face to face. You know what I mean?
right.
Um, so yeah, I've always loved Savage Dragon. I loved the newest issue. I thought that was fucking crazy. The fucking, have you read 250?
I haven't. I haven't
Okay,
yet.
okay, go read it.
Okay.
Especially as a fan, you're gonna be like, what the? So this isn't your first Kickstarter
No, this
by any
is
means. You've done some, they're successful, but one thing that is different this time, and I was wondering if I could, pick your brain about it, is you launched it during an unusual time in the state of the world
yeah.
with, COVID, mostly COVID, but other stuff as well is going on. Was there any trepidation on your part to launch during this time?
It, I wasn't even going to. We weren't even going to do a Kickstarter for this
Oh,
project. We were originally just going to print it up ourselves and bring it to conventions to sell around. But there was, I think at the beginning, I think maybe maybe a couple months ago, it would have been a bad idea. But now the Kickstarter community and I guess people around Kickstarter, the people who back Kickstarters, are backing in full force. And I think we saw it like with Jim Rugg's
yeah.
Octobriana book,
Yeah, that was
right?
crazy, dude.
And I was a part of the Monkeys Fighting Robots magazine that is
Hmm.
coming out, and I saw it with them. I was like, that it's so crazy the amount of backers that you can get and the amount of funding you can have through Kickstarter at this time. I think what Kickstarter now and kind of my thoughts moving forward is this goal was $500 for
Yeah.
the Jamboree. Very very low, very obtainable. In my on my mind, I was like, I can get $500 for this thing pretty easily. Um, it was the lowest Kickstarter I've ever run. More for promotion than anything. It's really hard. Like now we can't go to conventions to promote. Now we can't do you can't even really do store signings. Not a lot of stores are open.
Hmm.
So there's not a lot of ways to promote stuff outside of social media. What Kickstarter does really well, and I like what you pay for off of off of doing a Kickstarter is having that backing of promotion a little bit, and it paid off. I mean, we were funded within an hour, and
Yeah.
we just kept going. It's incredible. The small goal, uh, low print run Kickstarter, I think is my future of Kickstarters moving forward, and that's pandemic or no pandemic. That's kind of
Right.
where I'm at.
Yeah, it's interesting too because like you accidentally launched it right the night that it went out, or well, for me it was, yeah, for me it was night, so it had to be late for you as well, I would imagine. Um,
Yeah,
so I instantly went and I was like, wow, $500, like that's, like I was kind of curious, like I thought that was, I haven't seen one that low, and then my brother who just launched one, he launched it at 2,500, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of low, but then and he told me he was
yeah,
going to launch it at that. But then I saw 500. I thought that was interesting. Like, well, then you're guaranteed, especially for backers. You're like, oh, this is going to get backed. Like I know as a person that backs Kickstarters, sometimes I'm like hesitant because I'm like I don't want to almost get my hopes up, I guess,
Right,
if something's not gonna get made. So I think that's cool. Like if you do lower ones, I think people maybe that incentivizes people. I don't know. I mean I'm kind of new to it as well, and it's kind of interesting to hear the other
yeah.
side.
The in previous Kickstarters, the goal has always been to not have to pay anything. Where you're not, so you're not making any money from it. You're just recouping the costs of printing and shipping, really. The Baboon I made no money on. The Tales of Monkeys Fighting Robots I made no money on. This one allows me and Nick to be paid for the work that we did, keeping it so low, which allows us to then, like, all we had to do was kind of front the bill on the front end. And this Kickstarter going well, if we're able to hit that second stretch goal, which is $5,000, I'm hoping we hit that. But if we don't, it's clearly not a big deal. But that would pay us to be able to produce the next crossover, right?
Mhm.
So we could actually take the money we've made from a Kickstarter, pay us to not have to take on other gigs. Like currently, I've been taking on a lot of illustration work, just here and there to pay bills. But if
Right.
I can pay myself to make my comics, that's the dream, right? That's the
Yeah.
uh, nobody's telling me what to do, and I'm still making money from stuff. That's that's what you want.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I know, like, not to just keep talking about my brother, but like that's what he did. He fronted all of it. So he's
Yeah,
got the book done. He's got
yeah.
them printed already, and he's literally doing this so that he can do the next issue, you know?
Oh, he got it.
Um,
He printed the first issue and started to do a Kickstarter.
yeah, he's I know.
That's
I thought it was
no.
interesting that he did it that way too, but
I
that's what he wanted to do, man, you know?
I've thought about it. I've thought about doing that. For the for the first Baboon book, which is a 64-page comic book, I
Hmm.
did the whole thing before the Kickstarter launched. It was literally just paying for printing, and it was a small goal. Uh, I think the goal was 5,000,
Hmm.
but I printed it. I printed it up. They're hardcover books. They're super
Yeah,
super nice.
they are really nice, man.
So so it was being able to make something with, like, it only is a hardcover book because of Kickstarter, uh, and because of the funding that we got for the book. Um, but it was also, I didn't pay myself. I've made no money off of this book until the Kickstarter was done, right? So now
Mhm.
I'm a year. Now I make money from the book because I have backstock and
Right.
product to sell. But it also, for your brother, I would say, for his second issue, have first issues as a reward tier, right?
Hmm.
Because that's been super super popular for for this Jamboree comic, this crossover comic. You can buy the first Baboon book and the Jamboree,
Hmm.
and that's like one of the top selling rewards for this Kickstarter is just backstock stuff that I
Right.
have sitting in a closet.
Right. It's kind of like what like Jim Rudd did, right, with the Aphrodisiac and Street Angel.
Right,
And I
right,
would have backed those if I didn't just buy the hardcovers
right,
from like a shop. But yeah, I think
right.
that that's a very good idea. I definitely will tell him to do that. I was wondering, you're talking about stretch goals. Can you tell us about some of those stretch goals you guys have in mind?
Yeah, purposefully, this is super, super low, and the stretch goals are really, really high. The first stretch goal was at 2,500, and that's stickers. We have there's a Who's Who's page in the comic, those old DC Who's Who's, um, that I've recreated with Pink Lemonade and the Baboon, and I'm just going to take those and we're going to make stickers out of them. Uh, just
Cool.
the single images. So that was the first stretch goal. The second stretch goal is at 5,000, and then we'll add pages and pinups into the book. We have some creative teams that have said that they've agreed to do stuff. I don't want to announce anything
Okay.
here, but we have some people, some like big name people who have agreed to to do a pinup in the book, which is kind of crazy, but
Oh
yeah.
yeah, dude, that's awesome. And speaking of other cartoonists, have you thought of doing this again? Another crossover? Is there any cartoonists that you have in mind of maybe doing this, or you and Nick together doing a really crazy one?
Yeah. Um, what's his name? Frog Boy. A Baboon Frog Boy book would be super fun. Um, Man, some of mine are like super dreamy. The
Mm-hmm.
Black Beetle by Francisco Francavilla would be.
Oh,
I would love. That's been on my bucket list since I had the hardcover printed. Um,
mm-hmm.
Actually, when I talked to the printer, I said I need it to smell and feel like that, to smell like Black Beetle. Um,
That's
which
funny.
is such a weirdly specific thing. But the printer was like, I know exactly what you need. You want this, and this. And I was like, oh, you're weird, just like me. And that's what
Just
I
like
needed.
me too.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, there's I mean, oh man, there's tons of stuff that I would love to do crossovers with. Bucket list too. Like I love Eric Powell. Uh,
Mhm.
I would love to do a crossover with him, or like just a cover. An Eric Powell cover would be dreamy. Um, there's tons of stuff.
Yeah.
Now I come now when you ask me, I come to a blank. I should have this all written down to do these kinds of interviews, but
It's all
yeah.
good.
Oh man, so many things. I've been thinking about doing like an old school golden age anthology type of book
Okay.
with the baboon and whoever, if I can get some other cartoonists who have that action adventure sensibilities
That
to
sounds
go in
awesome, dude.
and do that.
Awesome. And then, are there any other projects that you're working on right now? Because the
Uh,
books are done, right?
yeah, these books are done. Currently, I'm doing a bunch of illustration work for a local brewery. I'm doing all of their beer cans.
Okay.
So that's been super fun, but also very time consuming. Uh, the Baboon comic strip, I'm writing the second Baboon book, um, which is going to be originally it was like, okay, it will be a 64-page book, and then it turned into an 88-page book. And I was looking at it yesterday. I think it might end up being around 100. Uh, so it's a very long process
Hmm.
writing this thing, which is it's all plotted out. But I've been working with an editor too, so sending stuff to an editor and the back and forth from that end. But I can actually show you some of my pages because I write
Oh yeah.
and draw at the same time. So uh, I try to do everything in 2-page spreads when
Hmm.
I'm writing, so at least I can tell what uh, what is going to go on one end and the other end.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So this is what I'm doing now. It's a lot of writing, uh, trying to stay busy. It's hard. Uh,
Yeah.
Working from home. I work from home. I've always worked from home. Now when I'm kind of forced to have to work at home, it's hard to it's hard to be like, yeah, I'm gonna go and do something outside, or I'm gonna go sit at a coffee shop. I sit on my dining room table a lot now and
Mhm.
just like have a cup of coffee, get on my computer, and try to make myself feel like I'm in a different place and not just my office.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, I have a hard time even doing little things like, for for the channel or the podcast or whatever. Like, I get distracted easily, at home, especially with a kid. So
Yeah.
I can only imagine, like, your job is to be home, because I still go to I work at a comic book shop, so I still go there three
Yeah.
times a week. Is Are things locked down over there, or is everything pretty much open, or?
things are we I live in Florida, so
Yeah.
we are in the news constantly. So
Yeah. Yeah.
things opened for a little bit. Things opened for 2 weeks and then shut back down.
Okay.
Certain a lot of coffee shops aren't even open right now. They're just super uh, trying to be good, so they're not even open, or they're only open for carry out. So you can't stay and hang out there. Um, you can't eat in a restaurant now. Like
Yeah, same here.
some restaurants you can, but they have to have a certain amount of outdoor seating, and there's a whole to do. Um, but no, it's pretty much we're in a pseudo lockdown. You can still go to the beach, which is uh, needed on certain days, but it's pretty much just be home, work,
Hmm.
and try to figure stuff out.
Yeah, I was curious also, how do you like motivate yourself? How do you like crack down and be like, okay, these hours I gotta get this stuff done because you are your own boss. How does a cartoonist like differentiate the time where they get to like leisure time and then like, no, this is work?
You find the rhythm. You find
Mhm.
what works best for you. I'm a morning person. I'm a morning worker. Uh, so waking up early. I was up at 6:30 today
Mhm.
to I was just up and I
Yeah, I get up early too.
hung out a little bit. I read some comic books. I had a cup of coffee and just kind of got my day started. And then around like 7:38, I get anxious to start wanting to work. It's I just have it now. I've done this for so long that's just built into my system to be like, all right, I'm gonna go sit in my office. The main thing is if I'm not feeling inspired, if I'm not feeling like ready to work, just going in my office and sitting there, being in the place is 80% of the job, right? There's that old saying. My grandfather used to say it all the time. 80% of work is just showing up, um,
Hmm.
and taking that to heart as a person who works from home. 80% of work is just sitting at your desk, and then the 20% will come later. Like you'll just start noodling around if there's nothing to do. Um,
Hmm.
Putting on a podcast, trying to get jazzed about comics, flipping through a book that I really like. That's actually the project that I'm working on now is a new podcast YouTube show where I interview other book people about the books that they keep at their desk to get jazzed about making more comics.
Oh, that's cool, man.
It's really just a comic book gush fest. As
Hmm.
uh, there's no real like how do you make stuff talk. It's just like I want to hear you uh, talk about my first guest was Vita Ayala, and they talked about Strangers in Paradise. So for like an hour, they just talk about Strangers in Paradise, and it's great. I've never read Strangers in Paradise. I want to now. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
an
definitely
advantage.
stoked to watch that, man. I'm
Yeah,
definitely
it's
excited.
fun. It's That's what we need right now, right? We just need somebody to. We need some fun. We need people laughing and talking to each other. I miss laughing and talking to people.
Yeah, I don't blame you, man. Speaking of that, so what cartoonists or what books are you excited about? And also, side question to that, what books do you have near you that you flip through to kind of get you jazzed
Oh,
into work?
the spirit. I don't know if you can see like right here. This is my
Yes, I've been
the
looking
spirit.
at it.
I almost have. I'm like missing six of them. Um, but I have like almost the entire run of that stuff. Uh, Flipping through the spirit is one of the things that I look at a lot. Oh man, I've been reading a lot of old comics, a lot of comic strips. Uh,
Hmm.
there's a Crazy Cat here. Comic strips has been my jam in this past year has been all primarily just me reading old comic strips pre 1950, which has been great. Currently, my biggest obsession right now is the Dick Brafer Frankenstein.
Oh, I've never
I don't
heard
know
of
if
that.
you know about this book. It
No.
is a humor comic that features Frankenstein. It is so loose. The character designs are amazing. It is just super, super fun. It's actually funny. Um,
I'm gonna have to look
it's
that up.
really thick brush line. Yeah, this came out through. This is a Dark Horse book, and it was easy to get a hold of.
Okay.
Yeah, this is my new obsession. It's great. There's 7 issues in that book. It's awesome. I love it. It is the book that I currently like. I'll flip through just to get jazzed and go make some stuff.
Awesome, dude. Before we get out of here, I was wondering if you can, throw out those plugs, man. Tell everyone where we can find you, where we can back this awesome jamboree.
Yeah, we have the Baboon Pink Lemonade Jamboree Kickstarter is running for the next 18 days. Whenever this goes up, it is currently uh, July 18th, and we have 18 more days for it. It ends early next month, uh, early August. I think August 7th, 5th or 7th. I can't remember. Um, but I'm on all social medias at Art of Jamie Jones, and I have a Patreon where I publish certain stuff that hasn't been out yet, or and the comic strip, the Baboon comic strip, appears a week early there. Um, yeah, that's patreon.com/Art of Jamie Jones. Everything's Art of Jamie Jones.
Okay.
It's pretty easy to find.
And I'll throw all the links down below too for everybody listening, watching right now. But yeah, dude, thank you for doing this. Thank you for
Yeah.
asking me to be a part of the press for this stuff. I'm very excited to get that book in my hands. And dude, let's do this next time you have another Kickstarter.
Yeah, I am down to talk whenever. So
All right, cool, man.
let's do it.
All right,
Awesome.
well, thank you, dude.
Thank you.